Let's talk about new social and political groups. As the subcontinent was advancing, new social and political groups were forming within the subcontinent. There were a lot of people who were coming from outside of India and settling here, forming new social groups and giving a political outline to the continent. So, there were various changes that happened between 1700 and 1750 at different moments in this period. So, it was not overnight effect. There were large movements or large differences and developments that took place between this period, and it was a very long period of time. So, new technologies made their appearance. For example, earlier people they used to walk. There were no cars or chariots. So they started to build long log of wood to use in chariots to form carts, etc. Like the Persian wheel in irrigation, the spinning wheel in weaving, and the firearms in combat. So what kind of technological development took place? So there was a Persian wheel. As you see here is an image of Persian wheel which is made from a log of wood. So this was used in irrigation to draw water and provide proper water supply to each field. Then there was a spinning wheel. As you know, the charkha that was used in weaving cloth. Then there were firearms in combat. So earlier the only weapon was swords, etc. But at that time firearms were used in combat. Guns were also coming. So potatoes, corn, chilies and coffee. So different kind of foods were eaten at that time. For example, potatoes, corn, chilies, tea and coffee. They were new food items that were discovered and that arrived in the Indian subcontinent. Tea, for example, belonged to China. Coffee belonged to the European part. Chilies, corn, potatoes, they also came from different parts of the world and took their roots in the Indian subcontinent. New people, they brought their new ideas with them. They brought a lot of economic, political and social and cultural changes with them. Since a lot of traders, merchants, they were coming from different parts of the world, they brought their culture with them. So a lot of ideas were changing at that time. For example, the Rajputra or Rajputs were Kshatriyas who claimed ruler status, that they were the kings or the rulers of the subcontinent. They had a very chivalric code of conduct, extreme valor and great sense of loyalty. They were very courageous that we would protect the society from any ill that exists. Whereas the Marathas, Sikh, Jat, Ahom and Kayast, these were the caste of scribes and secretaries. So they were the people who used to work in different parts. For example, they used to write. They were writers, they were secretaries and also used the opportunity of the age to become politically important. So since the Kshatriyas, they were working and they had their extreme valor in order to protect the community, the Marathas and the other communities, they become engaged in political and socio-economic activities. So ranks were not fixed permanently. So the ranks in the social stature or in any kind of job, they were not fixed permanently. They used to change and they were variable. So how did they vary? On what basis? They varied on the basis of power, influence and resources controlled by vary from area to area. So the ranks of any person, king, ruler, emperor, they varied from the influence of resources, control, power, etc. Jatis frame their own rules and regulations to manage a code of conduct for their members. So for example, one jati, one caste is there. So within the jati, they had their own code of conduct or rule of conduct that the members of this jati would follow this particular tradition and custom. These regulations were enforced by an assembly of elders, described in some areas as Jati Panchayat. So now what we have to keep in mind is that who is a Jati Panchayat. So these were elderly members who used to put regulations on the code of conduct of the Jatis. But Jatis were also required to follow the rules of their village, because of course they could not do or perform or have the power autonomously. So several villages were governed by a chieftain. So there was a chief who was the chief of a village, there was a common unanimous code of conduct in the villages, and in the village there were subgroups known as jatis.